To another edition of the New Breed Podcast, the world's best podcast, talking about everything new with a U. I am one half of your hosting duo, Jay Horsecow. With me, I have my partner, Tim Anderson Jr. Tim, how's it going?
Great. Well, this internet connection's a little choppy tonight, I think.
It's all that porn you're downloading in the background. And joining us for the first time, front of the podcast, John Carr. John, thanks for taking the time. Glad to have you. So for tonight's conversation, we've covered off in the history of the show, we've covered off a lot of different weird corners of nu metal. Tonight, we're going to talk about one in particular that we haven't dug into quite yet. We're going to talk about industrial nu metal. So John reached out to us. He said he wanted to go in on this, and Tim and I haven't had this conversation yet, so we figured what better time than now. So, John, do you have a bit of an intro or any sort of background before we can just start diving into the bands and whatnot?
Yeah. So industrial music as a whole, at least the crossover stuff, that was one of my first musical loves. I had mostly friends who were into pop and rap music when I was like 12. So that was what I listened to. I didn't have any rock or metal friends. And then when I started discovering music on my own, say around 97, 98, I heard radio rock stuff and I thought it was all right. But there was something about industrial, like, and just the noisy machine sounds that certain bands were doing that drew me in. It was the first genre I truly latched onto. Those were some of the first bands I really latched onto. So as I went on like my musical evolution or whatever, industrial bands have always come along with me. Like I've dragged bands like for almost 25 years now. I don't care. I'm not going to stop listening to them. But yeah, industrial nu metal, I loved when I started discovering, because like the first nu metal stuff I heard was like Limp Bizkit and Korn, just like most other people, or Deftones. But then you hear like American Head Charge and Mushroom. Oh, there's other bands doing this. They're combining it. It was awesome.
Yeah, that was one of the things I thought was interesting. I'm like you. I came from the whole Skinny Puppy, Chem Lab.
I absolutely love Skinny Puppy.
Yeah. Ministry, all that, I mean, industrial, when it also, I mean, to your point, with Nine Inch Nails, with Ministry, it didn't take a turn towards pop, but it took a turn towards popularity in the sense of it was a more accepted sound. So then all that weird sort of like, you know, like the Skin Lab, the Kenny Pop, the Chem Lab, the Skinny Puppy, the Troponin Pal, the even like the Einsters and Neubauten and all the old stuff started to bring all that with it. And then you have this nu metal thing coming out on the other side, and then you have bands that start pulling those pieces in, be it the jackhammer riffs or the heavy synths or just that like machine type visual. And I thought, I'm like, oh, this is a pretty interesting portmanteau because it works.
Mm-hmm. It was like there's a lot of bands who are bringing aggression, and what is nu metal? Aggression. So it was easy for certain bands to do that backdrop. I mean, there's a lot of them who didn't, and there's a lot of little synth parts who I wouldn't call industrial. But I was a big fan of like the 90s industrial explosion. Like Nine Inch Nails made it where all these labels were like, oh, we should pick up anybody who has a synthesizer. Yeah, it's kind of 50-50.
Yeah,
there's certain bands who don't do it for me, and there's certain bands I think are amazing.
Yeah.
Like TVT, basically just jumping on everything after Pretty Hate Machine.
Yeah. There's a band called Sister Machine Gun.
Oh, I was just listening to that today.
Who I really, really like them, but their first album from 91, I think it's called, or
it's not the Torture Technique. It's
that's the second album, Sins of the Flesh.
Yes.
That if there's not a carbon copy attempt at Pretty Hate Machine, it's that.
Yeah.
Like it's really good, but like you're like, nah, I see what you're trying to do here.
Yeah. He definitely looked at Pretty Hate Machine and said, I like that. I want more of that. And that's they dug in on it.
There was a really good industrial rock band who never really broke through. They had one minor hit that Trent tried to take under his wing, and the mainstream never latched onto a band called Machines of Love and Grace. They had a song on the Crow soundtrack.
Yep, Golgotha Tenement Blues. Yeah, we were just talking about that last weekend, Tim and I. Yeah.
Yeah, they have 3 amazing albums, but yeah, just couldn't quite break through.
Now you make me think of so you bring up Swiss Machine Gun, but you think of Trent Reznor. I also think of that band Prick.
Prick is great.
I thought was brilliant. I thought that first album was great. It was radio enough that it probably could have.
It was also
it
weird.
Never got. Oh yeah, it was weird.
but no,
it never got the attention.
They chose the right song for the single. Animal was a good single. It was catchy, and it just didn't work.
Yeah. So let's start with this, Tim. I'm going to start with you. When I say to you industrial nu metal, what is the band that immediately pops in your head? What's the bellwether?
I don't even know, man. It's like I don't really hear a lot of industrial in nu metal. I think that's my problem. To me, it's more of just like a dude who plays keyboards. Like I don't really hear that deep industrial sound in a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to sound like a dick because that's what we're talking about, but that's just the way I feel about it. But like, I don't know, man. Like the very old Mushroom Head had a little bit of it. I guess you could say Static X did, but when I listen to Static X, I hear more of like just an added in sound. I don't really hear like people going for the industrial sound. I think maybe if anyone really tried it, it would be Orgy, but I really just don't consider that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. I mean, there's enough pieces of it that it's a question of you don't really hear it as a mainstay. Well, to me, to be honest, when I hear industrial nu metal, the first band I always think of Static X for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure now that we're having this conversation. I'm not so sure it's because of the music, or is it so much the music coupled with the imagery? Because they had a very mechanical image, the logo with the circle X, the videos, right? They were always robotic.
Yeah, the push-it video, especially.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. Maybe that's where I'm centering on. But to me, that's what they definitely have that flourish. So to me, when I set the bar, that's where I set, and then it's either above or below that.
I think the atmosphere of Wisconsin Death Trip has an industrial feel to it. But as far as like a pure industrial band, no.
Yeah. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Like the feel is there, but you don't really get like an industrial sound out of most of these bands. Yeah. Like Crossbreed kind of tried it, and then you know what I mean, but it just doesn't. Like Spineshank has them parts, but it's more, to me, it's more layered in the nu metal sound. It's more guitar driven than
The ones who I honestly think are closest are the ones who aren't really even nu metal. The ones it's the bands who are kind of industrial rock who kind of have little touches of nu metal, like Godhead or Rammstein, or like even Fear Factory on Obsolete Digimortal. Little touches, not nu metal, but they kind of get in there. It helps that you have a rap rock song with Be Real. But
if Fear Factory didn't have the back catalog that it has, and their first album was Digimortal, they would be the poster boy for industrial nu metal.
Oh yeah,
if that 100%. Was their only band, if that was their first album, that would be, because it's the very tight syncopation and the machine gun and riffing. It's basically as close to an industrial nu metal album you would get. In visualizing it.
Well, listen to Demanufactured. Like on Demanufactured, I consider that to be like, and the first records, I consider them to be like industrial metal because they have that like pulse pounding sound in the background, and you don't really get that with the nu metal. Like Apartment 26. Like you could tell that they try to go for that kind of sound, but it's not really. It's more guitar driven still.
A lot of their industrial like tags seem to come from the fact that they like to use loops in their music.
There you go.
But yeah, as far as like in a grinding industrial guitar sound, Apartment 26 doesn't have it, regardless of the fact that I really like them.
Yeah, it's a good record. Like the Professional Murder Music record. I mean, they have the sounds in there, but it's more guitar, it's more rock driven.
Parts of the Professional Murder Music album actually remind me of if Korn had more synthesizers early on.
Oh, you know what?
I haven't listened to that in so long. I guess I got to go back with a new set of ears. Was that you were just telling me to listen to that, Tim? Oh, yeah, the single that just came out, right?
I went back and listened to that self-titled record. That record is fucking good.
It is.
Yeah.
It also has an amazing Cure cover on it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. What song is that again?
Night Like This.
There you go. There you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
track 6 is like the one of them tracks where I just started over and over because it's just so fucking catchy.
Is that Darker or Unknown Origin?
No,
Or am I too far back?
It's number 6. I'll look it up while we're talking. I like was listening to it all day today. Like, can't get enough of this fucking song.
That whole
See
album
this.
is really good. Their second album's also good. They just it's a bit of a shift. Like it's not quite as industrial as that one. Like
The song's called These Days.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I guess since we're talking about it, we could start with that band.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess John, you would know the most about them because you seem to know your shit. So
Mm.
So I mean, I guess started off with that band. I mean, do you consider that like I mean, we talked about it, but do we consider them an industrial new metal band or just hints of it?
I think if it's not, it's pretty close. The same way I'd consider somebody like Videodrone to be close.
Okay.
But they definitely they've got a dark aura on a lot of their songs. They use synths. And they have I don't know if they're using drum machines, but they kind of have that sound sometimes.
Yeah.
And then the super affected vocals also help with it. I don't know how you guys first heard them. They had a song on, I believe it was the End of Days soundtrack. Yep. And they had a video for it. And I used to see that in MTV2 all the time.
Yeah, we just did it's funny you mentioned that, John. We just did a recording last weekend, Tim and I, on soundtracks, and we went in on all these soundtracks that grabbed new metal bands that were established, that were up and coming. And that was one of the ones that stood out. And I believe they also had a song on, I think it was Heavy Metal 2000. Wasn't it? They had a song on that as well, which actually led to I think that was a single before the first album. I think.
The Heavy Metal 2000 soundtrack is amazing. Yeah. And was the reason I heard a whole bunch of bands like that. I had a friend who had it who didn't even like nu metal, and he had that soundtrack because he really liked the movie. And that was how I first heard Full Devil Jacket, Apartment 26, Sinistar, who on here. And there's a handful of other ones. Puya, I'd never heard them before.
So I'm looking at this is bad audio, but John sent us over a list of bands that we could potentially consider to debate, to discuss. One of the ones that is on your list that actually harkens back to conversation that Tim and I had last weekend, Kidney Thieves, right? They were around for quite a bit. And when Tim and I started going through the first pass of soundtracks, they were on a very early entry and they were on a very late entry. So they eked out a hell of a career in that weird sort of land between new metal and not, industrial and not. They had enough, I hate to use the term crossover appeal, but they had enough blending of genre that I think it allowed them to eke out a pretty
it was also aided. That was during a time when you're starting to see the rise of the female fronted rock bands on like radio. So you were getting your Evanescences, and Lacuna Coil was starting to break, and people were starting to know who Nightwish was. Not that it's the same style at all, but then Kidney Thieves kind of fit in. They had that song on the Queen of the Damned soundtrack, Before I'm Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a single. Trying to remember what it's called. I think it's the name of the album. What's the name of the album?
Oh, I don't.
Zero Space.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, and then they had an album before that, like in like the late 90s, that's a bit rougher. But yeah, Kidney Thieves were around for a little while.
Yeah, I was really kind of surprised. Like as I'm because we listed out, Tim and I went chronologically in all these soundtracks, and I'm like, man, these guys are back again. Like they've really eked out a hell of a career.
Yeah, they
Old
might
Chamber
even
was like the
are they
biggest
still around?
One.
It says here. Well, Wikipedia says the last album was in 2016, but to me, they showed up on. Oh, it was Bride of Chucky in '98.
Oh, yeah,
and then they were on 2002.
Cold Chamber had a song on Bride of Chucky, didn't they?
Yep.
One of the weird ones.
I think they had a song on every soundtrack we talked about.
Yeah, they did. They did.
What's the
Cold Chamber again?
What's the D. Snyder horror movie?
Oh, Strangeland.
Yeah, it was the early version of Not Living was on that.
Yeah.
We talked early version. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a song called Blisters was on Bride of Chucky. Yep.
Blisters.
I'm gonna download Strangeland after this and watch it this weekend.
I've never seen Strangeland.
Dude,
It's
it's
good,
not
man.
bad. It's not bad. Like I mean, it's definitely a product of its time, but it's not bad. Like it's not as terrible as some of the other Tim and I, and the funny thing we noticed, John, was back then a lot of the horror movies, especially, were pulling nu metal into their soundtracks.
Yeah.
And we noticed that there was a couple movies where we're like, this movie wasn't good, man. I don't know who it's hell, but the movie wasn't good. So don't watch the movie, but listen to the soundtrack. What was it?
I
It
know.
was
I
stuff
know
like,
what you did last summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Horrible.
Is it Scream 2 or 3 has a loaded?
3 was a lot of nu metal. Yeah.
That's the one with Full Double Jacket and like Creed and stuff like that.
Yep.
Very good.
Yeah. Yeah. But we went on for like 10 minutes on how terrible. I know that idea of taking attractive Hollywood young people, a horror movie, mash them together, put some, you got to hit.
You know who was also on every soundtrack in that period of time? Power Man 5000.
Yep.
So you have them on this list, and I really do want to talk about them for a bit because I find them very much an enigma, right? So I love Mega Kung Fu Radio. I think it's
I really
think it's
like
a
Mega Kung Fu
wild
Radio.
listen.
And I'm glad you like it too.
I love
Nobody
it.
ever
It's-
mentions that one.
Oh, we'll do a deep dive on that. Tim will just be pounding pencils into his ear. It's a very odd album in the sense of they go all over the place and it's like they're not really sure where they want it to be, but it worked. But after that, they I really kind of lost interest. Like it was Tonight's Stars Vault, and then the album after that, and it just, I think they kind of decided which way they wanted to go, but it wasn't to me as resonant. Or maybe it's just me.
I'm one of these weird people who really, really loves Power Man 5000. And I'm going to be honest, I couldn't tell you why. I just really like them.
They're great live.
Oh yeah.
I have missed, there's been 3 instances where I should have seen them and I didn't end up seeing it. I've never seen them live.
Where are you from, by the way?
Connecticut.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're East Coast. Okay.
Yeah. Aren't you guys from nearby?
Yeah. Philly area, outside of Philly.
Oh, okay.
Tim's on the PA side. I'm on the Jersey side. Yeah.
Good. I'm tired of talking to people from California.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, no, Power Man, I heard him first, like most people did, which was When Worlds Collide, and then that whole album, and I loved it. And then I went back and I heard Mega Kung Fu Radio, and while it was different and a bit more like rap rocky, I really liked it. But Power Man 5000 kind of nosedived their own career when they shelved Anyone for Doomsday.
Yeah. Did they shelve that and then they never put an album out, or they did something
No,
completely different?
they released Bombshell as a single. It did well at radio. I think there was a WWE tag team that even used it, Dudley Boys. And so they went to radio. It was doing well. And then the day it was supposed to come out, which was actually, I remember it because it was the same exact day that Slipknot's Iowa came out. I went to the record store and they were like, we didn't get any copies in. I'm like, that's weird. So come to find out later that he ended up shelving the album of his own accord because he didn't want to release an album that sounded too similar to the previous one. He then proceeded to take 3 years to release a new album, which was far more into like an alternative rock vibe. And while it did get like one minor hit, fans weren't buying it. And then the album after that, they kind of went punk, and nope, they lost their fan base.
Yeah. See, I think bands will forgive one album as a transgression, but when you stack 2 in a row, it's an interesting topic. Bands that get too far into their own head, like what was it? Shit, man, it's been a long work day. Oh, I know who it was. Astronoid. I thought the first not nu metal at all. I thought the first Astronoid album was absolutely amazing. I fucking loved it. They wrote a second one, they recorded it, and they shelved it because they said it sounded too much like the first. And they put out, what was the second album instead, Tim? What was the title of that?
I forget, but it's goddamn incredible.
No, it's terrible. It's terrible. And the reason why to me it's terrible is all the kind of nutty stuff that was in the first one was totally gone on the second one.
Oh, that kind of sucks.
And I was
Oh.
like, I know there are certain bands that I want you to be AC/DC. I want you to put out the same fucking album every time. That's what I want to hear. And they were one of those bands who sounded for an album or two before getting some new influences. And they kind of went more mainstream, and I just lost it.
It's kind of like Fallujah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When they swapped singers, no offense to them, I thought the music was great, but it just didn't do it for me anymore.
See, I love that record.
You and I literally like a fucking oil and water and a lot of this shit. So John,
I'm a little weird in the fact that I actually like it when certain bands that I really like experiment. However, there have been a lot of misfires. I will firmly admit that. A weird one that I don't know why it popped in my head, and it's not new metal at all. Are you familiar with Bad Religion?
Oh yeah.
yes.
Have you ever heard the second Bad Religion album,
What's it called again?
Into the Unknown?
Yeah. Okay.
So the first album is like a notorious punk album, and everyone loves that album. And but the band didn't take themselves very seriously, so their second album sounds like Boston.
Oh.
And then
Yeah,
they
listen
like
to it again.
they made like they played like 2 shows, and people like left, and then they were like, I think we screwed up. And so then they just never did that sound again. They've actually started putting those songs back into their live set every once in a while now.
And people probably enjoy it.
Yeah,
Right?
they
Like,
enjoy it
it's
now,
like
yeah.
it's like Turbo from Judas Priest. It's like that one Suicide Silence album that everybody absolutely hated when it came out, and over time you kind of soften and you're like, yeah, maybe
Is
we're
it the
being a bit
one
ridiculous.
after? Is it the one after the singer died? So
Yes,
with the
it's
All Shall Perish guy.
Yes, the first one with Eddie. Yeah,
See, I've never heard anything with him. I've never been a big deathcore guy. But I did like a little bit of Suicide Silence, and then he passed away. And then, but yeah, all I heard was negative things about some of
people.
Oh, they loved it when he did that tee part. Remember that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was the fans just absolutely hated it. So
Ross Robinson did that record too.
did he? Oh
Yeah.
yes, he did. When we dove in through his catalog, Ross got kind of weird.
He
for
had
a
his
bit.
hands on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and he got kind of weird for a while, where he left the new metal stuff. He did all that post-hardcore screamo type stuff. Then he went like down the rabbit hole. And at one point, Tim and I did a deep dive on his catalog. And at one point he hits The Unquestionable Truth by Limp Bizkit. And I'm like, okay, I got you. And then after that, it takes this weird right-hand turn where I was like, well, what is this? This is terrible.
I'm still waiting on The Unquestionable Truth Part 2, Mr. Durst.
I think a lot of people are, because that is sadly overlooked as far as their catalog goes. And I think it's because
have you heard about why?
No.
Durst didn't want to promote it. He thought that he told Wes Borland, and Wes Borland called him an idiot for it. He's like, we're just gonna go out, we're not gonna promote this album at all, and we're gonna just go out and hit the streets and tour. And Borland was like, what are you doing? He's like, this is the first release I'm back in the band. Why aren't you promoting the crap out of this? He's like, no, the fans will come. No, didn't happen.
Well, I also think that could be part of it, but I really think the reason why maybe it hasn't resonated as much as some of their other catalog is they took themselves seriously. Like, that is a serious EP with serious song structure and serious song topics, religion and not trusting the government.
It was the most aggressive they were since the $3 bill.
Yes. And it was them taking themselves seriously. Like there was, serious music. Whereas it didn't have any of the fun that we're used to expecting with Limp Bizkit. 99% of Limp Bizkit is the middle finger and the tongue-in-cheek attitude. That's the point of it.
Results May Vary kind of did that too. They kind of sucked the fun out of Limp Bizkit.
Oh, it was terrible. It's terrible.
I don't hate it, but like going from Chocolate Starfish to that is like that's a 180.
Yeah.
Like,
so,
I know they changed guitarists, but
let's talk a little bit more about some industrial stuff, right?
Yeah.
So one of the bands, you listed some of the stuff that's adjacent. And one of the first bands you list as an adjacency is Filter. And Tim and I
Yeah.
kind of had this conversation last weekend about where they definitely were in that same orbit.
They kind of climbed into it because the Short Bus, the first album, nowhere near it. And I'd even question to call it really industrial rock. I think it gets lumped into it because he was the guitarist of Nine Inch Nails.
Exactly.
Yep.
And it has some vibes, but it's not the same. Although I do really like the album and I really like Filter. But title of record was a bit more accessible, like a harder rock. But it was when the Amalgamate came that they started, like, you're like, oh, it's 2000. I think it was 2002.
Yep.
And they started, like, all of a sudden you start getting these alternative metal elements and, like, not quite new metal. And yeah, you could bring some of those songs in and you could put them in a playlist with other new metal songs and it wouldn't feel out of place.
Yeah.
I think Title of Record is one of the best records of the 90s.
I love Title of Record.
It is expert songwriting. And
Yes.
you know, your use of the term orbit does make a lot of sense, because if you think about it, new metal is itself, if you could picture it in your mind as a black hole, there are bands that are stuck in that accretion disk and they're just circling. So like Korn, Limp Bizkit, right? Snot. They're just going around. And then there's bands that get kind of sucked in and get close and then they go right back out. Stuff like Filter, stuff like Slayer, stuff like Machine Head, which we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks, right? Where they get real close and then they reach ejection speed and they go back and do something different. But Filter they were definitely contemporaries of the new metal scene. Didn't they play a Family Values? Filter did one of the Family Values tours, didn't they?
They did it the year Limp Bizkit. No, I'm sorry. It was after the big year. They played with Stone Temple Pilots.
Okay.
And I believe Linkin Park. I might be wrong on that. And that might have also been the year that Method Man and Redman were there.
Yeah, I think that was it.
And who's the electronic band? They did a song with Crystal Method. Yeah, they were there. Whoever does the Trip Like I Do song.
That's
with
Crystal
them.
Method. Yep.
Yeah, they were there on that tour too.
Which loves that band.
I played something for Tim the other week. It was like a gabber band, and his response was, "This sounds like my CD player is skipping." Well, that would be an interesting. I mean, at that point, you had the Family Values tour almost trying to become what Lollapalooza was, right? Like, because Lollapalooza was known for an eclectic lineup, and you had them pulling in hip hop and electronica. This is also when the record labels were still trying to make electronica a thing. But a very, very, very interesting lineups they were putting together there. So another band you have on this list where I can't find a way to get into this, and I have tried numerous times, and Tim's probably gonna get mad that it says American Head Charge.
Yeah, it's strange that you can't.
Is it the vocals?
I don't know. I've tried listening like 2 or 3 times. I got to go back and try again. It's just I listen to it and I go, well, okay, this is good, but I don't get what all the fuss is about.
I heard American Head Charge pretty early on. They bring it live. They are really good. Although I think they have like 3 dead members now. So.
Yeah, I noticed that there's a lot of dead new metal people, right? Tim, we could make a really morose episode about that, but there is a lot of.
Crazy Town's lost 3 or 4.
What is it? It's Rust at Peak, the DJ,
and then the guitarist, or the drummer.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's kind of
what band was it?
Crazy Town.
Didn't Shifty die?
No, the Crazy Town's releasing new music soon.
Oh, are they?
Get hype.
Jordan Sloan is still convinced that their second album is better than their first. I haven't listened to it yet. I'm waiting to schedule that episode so I can dig into it, because I literally never listened to it. I just remember it dropping. I remember that first album being fun, and the second album they dropped off a damn cliff.
I do like Dark Horse more than the Gift Game, but I actively defend the Gift Game. I think it's fun.
Oh, so do I. I think it is a brilliant snapshot of metal in LA in the late 90s.
Although I never need to hear Revolving Door or Butterfly again in my life. I'm good.
Yeah, Butterflies. Yeah. I fast forward to that.
I was a firm believer that that band is terrible, and then I went back and listened to like a couple tracks, and I'm like, God damn it, this is catchy.
Yeah. I mean,
thing
I was
is,
at the
I
Ozfest.
heard
They
him-
got booed. They got booed at Ozfest. I was there. Yep.
That was my first concert.
Really?
Ozfest 01.
Up in Hartford, I'm
Yeah.
assuming. Okay.
I missed Crazy Town, actually. We were wandering around. Like I went with my mom. She took me to 4 Ozfests.
That's a story in and of
She was a
itself.
trooper. But yeah, yeah, that was my first ever concert. And yeah, I didn't like Crazy Town at the time, so I just avoided him. But I actually heard Toxic before I heard Butterfly. I remember when that was a single, and I was like, it was all right. And then Butterfly came out, and I was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I remember them playing. It was in Camden, and we were on the lawn, like kind of watching, kind of bullshitting. And when they go into the Refused cover, me and my buddy Rob just looked at each other. And we're like, "Yo, the fuck? Like, are you kidding me? Like, they're serious right now?" Yeah.
I've seen live footage of that. It wasn't good.
No, and it was not well received.
So a
Not-
terrible band is covering a terrible band.
Oh, here we fucking go. Oh, that last Refused EP is brilliant.
That's
but yeah,
actually the only Refused song I know.
that's just you're not alone in that. A lot of people say that. But yeah, just for whatever reason, I know, and I saw American Head Charge. They opened up the Pledge of Allegiance tour that I went to, and I just, for whatever reason, it just does not stick up here, and I can't for the life of me figure it out.
American Head Charge, I didn't immediately get into. I will firmly admit that. And I also had a friend who fucking hated them, and I couldn't. Also, I apologize if I swear.
Oh no, it's fine. We're totally R-rated. It's fine.
But yeah, he hated American Head Charge for whatever reason. A big Slipknot fan, big Mudvayne fan, big Mushroom Head. No, American Head Charge out. But yeah, there was something about American Head Charge I did that grabbed me. I liked. It helped that they had a catchy single, Just So You Know. And then I heard All Wrapped Up and We Believe and what's the second song? Not Violent Reaction, Pushing the Envelope, and that stuff. And I was into it. He sounded just visceral, but he also has kind of a weird voice.
So before I go back into it, if you had to describe them as closest to what other new metal band would you pick? So they are closest to X. What would X be? Is it Slipknot? Is that their contemporary? Is that their biggest contemporary?
I'd say more of like that Slipknot, that band that Slipknot clown signs kind of. The hell is that
Down
band?
Down the Sun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I get more of a Down the Sun vibe from them.
If you put Slipknot at one end and Spine Shank at the other, American Head Charge would be somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Like they're not as balls to the wall, double bass crazy as Slipknot, but they're a little more aggressive than Spine Shank is. And
okay.
I would say you could throw a Nothing Face in there as well as a sound of them as well.
Yeah, Nothing Face is weird because they're a band who I think has the aura of a band who should have industrial elements, but they don't. Like Skeletons is a brilliant album. And to think that's the last album, they went out on a high.
Oh yeah.
I gotta admit, I go back to Violence all the time.
Violence
and
really good.
I did
All
not
four of their
listen
albums
to
are
that
good.
when it was out. We did it for another deep dive, which we haven't released yet, have we, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
It's sometime in like 2023 or whatever it's scheduled. Sorry, Jordan. But yeah, I go back to that album all the time because I found it very catchy.
It's probably the smoothest album they have. Like if there was a Nothing Face album that was built for radio, it's Violence. Like it is smooth all the way, even the aggressive songs.
Oh, Make Your Own Bones. Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
Make Your
wasn't on
Own
the radio.
Bones, Can't Wait for Violence, Everlasting
Bleeder.
Godstopper. Bleeder
Yeah.
is amazing. And that was the first Nothing Face song I ever heard.
Yeah, there's some good tracks on that album.
Did you get the two song single that they were giving out at concerts? Is that how you heard that?
No, I was getting ready to go to Ozfest 03 and I knew they were at it. And I have a habit of, I would look up the band list and see who was there. And I had never heard Nothing Face before. So I just put it into, I was using SoulSeek, I think at the time. and I just put in Nothing Face, and that was the first song that popped up, and I was like, Bleeder, that sounds interesting. And yeah, that was how I heard it.
Great fucking song.
Funny thing is, Soulseek is still going. I was just using it the other day.
Yeah,
so,
no, I use it. I still use it.
John, getting slightly off topic, you said you had your mom take you to 4 Ozfest. Were they sequential?
Yeah, 01 through 04.
01 through 04. Okay. So you basically picked it up right as nu metal was cresting, and then the other stuff was coming behind it.
Yeah.
Because to me, like, I remember the first time I saw the third stage was, I want to say was it 01? Was it 01?
01 did have
Yes.
3 stages.
Where, for me, and that was where you got free tickets if you pre-ordered Iowa through Sam Goody, you got a free Ozfest ticket. And I remember going because I wanted to see Soulfly and I wanted to see Hatebreed. But then it was like there was a second or third stage with Union Underground and Taproot and Nonpoint and Spineshank and all these other bands where I was like, okay, this isn't bad. Like, but you could tell that it was on its way down. And then every year after that, there was more and more new wave American heavy metal, metalcore. It started to, like, the scale started to shift in the other direction. 2002
was a weird year because while you still had the new metal, that was like the brief rise of like the alternative metal bands. Like you had, I know we're not allowed to talk about them anymore, but Lost Prophets was there. Apex Theory was there, and like bands like that. And I was like, okay, that's where we're going. I also saw Andrew WK that year. I saw him at 8:00 in the morning. It was awesome.
He is. I saw him. He did when he first did the reunion tour, where he did I Get Wet in its entirety. You're gonna kick out of this, Tim. Me and my buddy Dom. He was on our Soulfly episode. We picked up a cooler full of beer and we went to our other buddy Patton and Rob's house, and we start drinking at like had to be like 3:00 in the afternoon for like a 7 p.m. show. And stupid me, I bought all like high test tavern porters, which are all like 9-10%. We get to the show, it was a disaster, but he was amazing. Like that is a fun album. It really is. And he's another guy.
Yeah,
I
love that album.
But he was, I mean, if you think about it, he was nu metal adjacent. He was hardcore adjacent. Like Andrew WK has basically played with everybody. He's played with everybody.
He opened for Slipknot in Europe in 2002, I believe.
That must have been can you imagine like all the Slipknot fans sitting there looking at this guy with like acid wash jeans?
What do you mean we're supposed to dance?
Yeah. Isn't he playing Furnace Fest?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, he played the last one. You ever see that DVD from the original Furnace Fest?
No.
Where like he's on stage and like there's people on his shoulders and he's like running around singing, losing his mind. Like the interview that I forget who saw, it might have been Doc Coyle did with the Furnace Fest guy. They talked about how that was one of those sets where nobody had any idea how it was going to go and it was completely bananas.
Oh yeah,
That's awesome.
You're right. I did listen to that.
So you went through what, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004.
Yeah.
I guess the question begs, why'd you stop?
My mom didn't want to go anymore, and I don't remember caring for the 2005 lineup.
Okay.
But in hindsight, maybe I made a mistake. I'd have to look at it. But
I don't think you did.
Okay.
I mean, I'm looking and it's like,
is 2005 was that the year Priest played? Or was that 04?
I think that was 04.
I think I left before Priest. I had to go to work.
Yes, it was
that was a good one.
I wish, in hindsight, at the time, I didn't care about Priest. In hindsight, I wish I had seen them because I do really like Judas Priest at this point.
Yeah, 04 was the new wave of American heavy metal metalcore. 5 gets a little weird. Like you have Sabbath, Maiden, Mudvayne, Shadows Fall, Black Label Society, Velvet Revolver. Slipknot played 2 days. In Flames, and the second stage was Killswitch, As I Lay Dying, Mastodon, The Haunted, Arch Enemy, Black Dahlia Murder, Bury Your Dead.
Haunted,
right? So it was very much leading into that, which I actually dug out. Was it One Kill Wonder, the first Haunted album?
Yes,
that's a fucking great album. The one song, I think it's track 4, where it begins with the march. It's that marching beat. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm fucking in. I'm in. It's great.
Great record. I think we should get into some industrial nu metal.
Yeah, let's go back the other way.
Sorry about that.
So let's
it's fine. Jay, let me take this one. I want to talk about Orgy because no one talks about Orgy.
I love Orgy.
that first record, man, I wouldn't say it's industrial, but they were the band that brought that sound, I think, to the mainstream. And I think a lot of people like heard that and they're like, dude, like that is something I've never heard before. Like we gotta try and duplicate it. Like, when did the Dead Sea record come out? Was that 2001?
Technically, there's a bunch of stuff that went wrong with that Dead Sea album.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was originally written in, I believe, 98.
Okay.
And they signed to a label. The label went under. They signed to another label. The label went under. And they had to sign to a third label, and I think Jonathan Davis helped them. And then they wrote Key to Gramercy Park. Key to Gramercy Park was not on the original 2 versions.
Oh, it's not. Oh, okay.
No.
Okay. That's a good record, though.
They even have they have another album that came out in 96.
Okay.
Self-titled one. So
wasn't Jay Gordon playing bass in that band?
Yes, early
Okay,
incarnation.
So. Yeah. Okay. But but when you listen to that Dead Sea stuff, it's like you see where like. I guess since they were out in 96, you see where Orgy kind of gets their sound then, I guess.
Yeah. And funny, when I saw Orgy, the only time I've ever seen them live was Orgy's reunion tour. And they used 2 members of Dead Sea in their live band.
Oh, yeah, you're right. They did. Yeah. I think I seen that. I think I seen that too.
I can't remember I think they played with Cruise Shadows. I can't fully remember.
Yeah, you might be right.
The first Orgy album is excellent. And I think is a good prototype for, if you're going to call something industrial nu metal, even though there's always the debate about is Orgy nu metal, I think they're close enough.
Yeah. I think they're in that realm where like they came out at the time where all the big nu metal bands came out and they get lumped into it. I mean, because they played Family Values twice?
Yes, they did.
And then it's like, and then all the guys in that band went to bands that were basically nu metal. I mean, what's his name's in Edema now?
Yeah, the singer. Yeah, I listened to that new song recently. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I never really liked them, so I wasn't even going to check it out.
But I think
Jay Gordon works on the second Cold Chamber album as well.
Yeah. I think that Candy Ass though is, I don't know. I just think that if we're talking about industrial nu metal, I think that's the closest one for me. Even though to me it's more of like a synthy based record. I don't even think Jay's ever heard the record, honestly.
What, Candy Ass?
Yeah,
I have it. I have it back there in the pile.
I thought you said you never heard that record.
It's good. It's
you never heard the third one. That's right.
Yeah. To me, they always struck me as more of a nu metal band channeling what we would now call like the synthwave revival, right? It was very much like 80s Depeche Mode influenced, more so than, like Chino swears like he loves Depeche Mode, he loves Sade, but you can really see that in Orgy. And they
covered a New Order song, so
yeah. I mean, I think they were one of those bands where they may have been a little bit too far ahead of their time, and then that's why while they got big enough, they never got bigger because they were just too unique. You know what I mean?
I don't understand how Vapor Transmission didn't blow up.
That's a fucking great.
Love that album.
Yeah.
And it was built for like I know certain things you're not supposed to talk about, things being built for radio. That every song on that album is really catchy. Like,
dude, especially what is it, Eva?
Eva is probably my favorite Orgy song. I love that.
Me too. That's a fucking incredible song.
And while I did make a remark about the third album is probably the closest they got to being proper like industrial nu metal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, they started actually implementing nu metal proper elements into their sound.
Yeah, what was like that opening track is like what, in 7-string, and it's like super super droney and heavy. And
Beautiful Disgrace.
You get a lot of that in there. I think that's a record Jay's never heard.
And
that one I've never heard.
And the single even had like almost like not rapping verses, but it's got that flow to it that like is like nu metal to a T.
What's the song?
Vague.
Vague. Yeah. Jay, listen to that record, man. It's good.
All right. Jesus. There's another one.
It's called Punk Static Paranoia.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're putting out stuff nowadays, and I kind of think he's just trying to go for like that, where he like, when they put out the 98 record, I think he's trying to catch that vibe again, because that stuff is kind of like blowing up nowadays with like bands like Perturbator. I always say it's wrong.
Yeah, Perturbator, Soft
Perturbator,
Kill,
yeah,
Drab Majesty. That 80s
Yeah.
synthy sound is
I
back.
think the best band who does that 80s synthy sound now is do you know who the Birthday Massacre is?
yeah.
I
Mhm.
really like them. Like their sound is ideal. Like they're not new, they're not new metal,
Right.
but
No, not at all. Yeah.
but they
No,
also have
yeah,
like
you're right.
they also have like poppy elements to them too, which I don't know. I'm fine with that.
I put that stuff on in the background, and it's always one of those albums that catches me where I stop and I'm like, man, I'm enjoying this way more than every time. And it's the funny thing is, every time I put it on, I'm like, man, I'm really kind of enjoying this shit. And you know, I would like to see that tour come to the States. What was it? Perturbator, Author and Punisher and Health, I think it was, that was going to tour Europe. Like that would be a wild lineup. That really would be a wild lineup. You know, so speaking of we have a list here of like smaller new metal tinge industrial bands. One of my favorites that I don't think they have ever gotten the respect that they deserved, and I still don't think the Neil and what's his name don't get the respect they deserve. Ultraspank.
Ultraspank's second album is amazing and one of my favorite new metal albums ever.
I haven't heard it in ages, but I love his voice. I love everything he's done with Low Pro. Life on Planet 9, I think, is amazing. Like I think he has a very unique voice, and it's just a shame that I think they never got I know that second album did not do well, right? And the label dropped them right after it because it was also put out right at the almost at the turning point where new metal was starting to fall out of favor. But I think his voice is
the only
amazing.
thing that I ever heard on radio was 5, from the first album. But, you know, Ultraspank is one of those bands who just they couldn't rise up. I don't know why.
And you know, it's not like they didn't tour. I mean, I didn't see the show. My brother saw them. It was them and System of a Down, and I forget who opened. It was another band opened for them at the Birch Hill, and I missed it for whatever reason. But I mean, they got the tours. It's just for whatever reason, it never took off the way I thought it should have.
To what you just said, he has an amazing voice. I love Pete Murray's voice.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter if it's Ultraspank. It doesn't matter if it's Low Pro. What's his new band? Something
Life on Planet 9. There was a band in between, and now him and Neil are doing Life on Planet 9, which is like this kind of like mellow. I don't know. Tim and I, we did an episode on bands. Again, another one that hasn't come out yet, on where new metal guys have went post new metal. And I think maybe we might've been drunk by the time we got to this band, but yeah, we definitely let that whole song play out. It's fantastic.
He had this weird short-lived project with the keyboardist of Stabbing Westward as well, band called Choked, and it's just CHOKT. It's like a 7-song EP, or demo or whatever. But that was really good too. What are your guys' thoughts on Dope?
I fucking love that band. I think that's one of them bands that a lot of people are like, ooh, you like that band? It's like, yeah, I do. I think they have a lot of catchy stuff.
It's the band who does the Die Motherfucking Die band or song.
Exactly.
I love Dope.
Great, dude. What is it? Debonair or Debonair?
Yeah, Debonair. It was in one of the
fucking great records.
It was one of the Fast and the Furious movies. Maybe the first Fast and the Furious movie.
Back when they were stealing VHS tapes and not in space. Man, that franchise is taking a turn. They're one of those bands where I really don't have an opinion on. Like it's not phenomenal to me, but it's not terrible. It's just, I guess I hate to even use the term serviceable, because it's not even just serviceable. It's not bad. Okay.
Well, fun fact about Dope: the guitar player is my girlfriend's son's band director.
No shit.
Oh, the current one?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I came in pretty early with Dope. I saw the video for Everything Sucks on whatever channel it was, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I love it. And then I went out and got Felons and Revolutionaries back in
great one,
like late 90s.
Yeah.
And I found out later that Edsel wrote and played that entire album by himself. Like it's basically like an urban version of a 9 Inch Nails record. And it's unfortunate that they never really had that sound again, of that particular album, but I've still enjoyed them along the way.
Yeah.
But that first album I love to death.
Can we all agree that that Zero is from Dope? It's the singer, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Static
the guy
X
from
guy.
Static X. Yeah.
For Static,
Yeah.
it has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, and here's the thing, like they play like this thing where like, oh, it's not him, but why are they touring it together again?
I don't know how he's going to do 2 sets in a night. That's tough.
Yeah,
You know, for a vocalist, yeah.
Every time I've seen Dope, they've been super high energy, and I've really enjoyed them. And the one time I saw Static X, they were also very high energy.
I can't wait for that tour, man. Fear Factory, Dope.
Yeah,
Static
Mushroom
X.
Head, Twisted, and somebody else is on it too.
Yeah, who is it? Too bad Mushroom Head's not on our tour. That pisses me
No, the
off.
Philly date, we get twisted. That, you know, if they were smart, they'd take out a young band, right? They'd take out a young new metal band.
Tetrarch,
Yeah, well, not even that. I mean, Tetra. You can take out
Tala,
Zone. You can take out Zone Zero.
right? Yeah.
You can take
Any
out
of them.
any of these bands, and it just as like, you know, the you get 20 minutes, go do your thing, and I guarantee you that would be a huge chance to expose old school fans to the new stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
So
which is what you need to do if you want to keep this like new metal thing going.
yeah, you want to maintain relevance. So speaking of a smaller band that was, they have a storied pedigree, but they were in and out in a flash of a pan, almost. Videodrome, right? That was old school. Wasn't that the first band that Jonathan Davis was in? That was Ty Elam. What was the band that
Sex
they were?
Art.
Yes.
And then they became Cradle of Thorns.
Yep.
And then they released 2 or 3 albums. I can't remember.
And then it was
Ross
Videodrome.
did the Cradle of Thorns record too.
Did he really?
It fucking touches everything. I saw them open for I think it was Korn and Rob Zombie in '99.
That's a very good pairing.
Yeah, I'm not a huge. John Wren's going to come through the screen right now. I am not a huge Rob Zombie fan.
Hellbilly Deluxe is the only album you need to love.
I think he makes great music, but live, I just don't think he pulls it off. I just don't. I think he's out of breath. I caught an internet meme. It was a picture of Rob Zombie that said something to the effect of, "This is what Rob Zombie is what it would look like if he took Jason Momoa and you put him in the microwave for 45 seconds." And I was like, man, Jesus, that's kind of a rough. But yeah, I mean, he was Jason, right? He had his moments. I mean,
it also helped that he was he's the brother of the guy from Power Man 5000.
Right. I think you know, with Sexorcisto, and then with Astro Cream 2000, right? All the samples and that sort of stuff. It helps lend itself to industrial adjacency very easily. And Astro Cream 2000 is a fantastic album.
It is a fantastic album, and that kind of influenced, like, or actually didn't fully influence, but there's another band called Prong, and
Tommy Victor. Yeah.
And then right after Astro Creep, they released an album called Rude Awakening, which is the most industrial album they've ever did, and I fucking love that album.
They're another band. Prong is another band that's kind of just fallen through slipped in the cracks, the seeds of time. But you know who I always put them in the same vein with, and I think it's just because of geographical adjacency. Do you remember Propane?
Yes.
I always put them, like, I put Prong, Propane, Biohazard all in the same kind of bucket.
I can understand
because they're
that.
all in the same. They're all from the same geographic area. But WSOU played them religiously, and I just think they were one of those bands I think supposedly were bigger in Europe than they were in the States.
That's the case for a lot of bands, or Japan.
Yeah.
I heard I think I heard Snap Your Fingers, Snap Your Neck first.
Yep.
And then I heard stuff from Rude Awakening, and I was like, I'm all in.
So what do we got? Well, we covered a decent amount of ground. I mean, we talked
Mushroom
about
Head. Let's do it.
Do you think, is that industrial? Yes or no?
I think
Partially.
the first couple records are partially, they went for it. But then when 13 comes, they kind of went straight. Just, I don't even consider that a new metal record, honestly. I kind of consider that like just a straight up rock record. I mean, to tell you the truth. I mean, 13 is one of my favorite records of all time. But
yeah, if you're going to, if it gets lumped into new metal at all, 13 is one of my favorite albums in that genre. There's no bad songs in that record.
Not one.
It's catchy. like basically XX, I know it's basically a compilation of stuff they had already done on their first 3 albums, but they learned so much because XX to 13 is night and day.
Absolutely.
They're like
songs like Bwomp and stuff like that. I think you get that vibe from it, like the industrial vibe that I think back then, like Super Buick stuff, you would get that on there. But yeah, when 13 comes and above, it's completely different.
Yeah, no. They completely cleaned up their sound. It's the best production they've ever had.
Yeah.
As far as, and it's the last, this always gets bad reactions. It's the last time I properly enjoyed Mushroomhead.
Yeah, you know what? That's a record, and me and Jay talk about this all the time. Like, that's a second half record where every song is just a banger after banger. Yeah. I love that record. Jay, you got to just listen to the record. Stop being a douche.
No, it's not that I haven't. I definitely had it on the other day, and I didn't think it was bad, but I was doing other stuff, right? So I had it on in the background. I wasn't giving it the real, like, okay, I got to sit down. I got to put on headphones, and I got to find like 45 minutes where I can not be interrupted. No, but I mean, I don't think they're bad. Everything I've heard, I've really liked.
I think that song, Sun Doesn't Rise on that record is like a perfect example of like what bands like strive to sound like back then. Because that song is an absolute perfect example of how to write a hit that just didn't catch on for some reason.
Yeah, Mushroomhead was one of those bands who they never really broke through. People like to look back and be like, oh, Mushroomhead was popular. They weren't popular.
Not really.
They never got on any big tours. Yeah, they would do headlining tours, but they're touring with like OTEP and like other smaller bands. They didn't get latched on any big tours. The one year they played Ozfest, they got lumped on the 3rd stage and they only played half the tour. But yeah, their Sun Doesn't Rise should have been a hit. There's a handful of other songs in that album. Nowhere to Go. That should have been really good.
Becoming Cold
is amazing. Yeah. Like that song never gets old for me.
You know it's funny, and I know they wear masks, so obviously this quick story is kind of dumb to say, but like I went to see them in Cleveland like 5 years ago, and we were sitting at an outside bar, and there was like 9 dudes sitting next to me. They all had like the tour laminates, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together. But the one dude buys me a beer, and he was just like, "Oh, you from here?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Yeah, I could tell." And I looked to him, and he's like, "You know who?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm playing a show tonight." I'm like, "Oh, are you?" I'm like, "I'm going to see Mushroomhead." He's like, "Yeah, I'm skinny." And I was like, "What the fuck?" And he just like bought me a couple shots, and he's like, "I'll see you there." And then I get there, and I'm like, "Dude, this place is so packed." It was so packed. You couldn't fucking see anything. It was crazy, dude. But the whole time we're sitting next to the whole band because he was like, "Yeah, we're pre-gaming." It's like a home show for us. And I'm just like, that's how you know they weren't popular, because you don't even know who the fuck you're sitting next to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? But it was just cool because I was just like, I'm like, what? He's like, "Yeah, I'm skinny." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
The very first time I saw Mushroomhead was this super stacked show that had this really crappy thing happened because there was one major band I wanted to see, and it was the opening band. It was Mushroomhead was headlining, Dope was directly below them, Crossbreed played before them, and then the opening band was this band called out of Texas, this industrial rock band with a female Nocturne.
Yes.
And they were pretty good, but I wanted to see Crossbreed. Like, I had been waiting years. Like, Synthetic Division came out in 2001, and then they kind of fell off, and New Slave Nation just came out. And I was like, yes, I get to finally see Crossbreed. 3 songs into their set, this was after the Great White Fire. And 3 songs into their set, their DJ does the grindy thing where the sparks go flying into the air. The people turned on the stage lights and told them to get off the stage. I was like, are you kidding me?
That tour didn't come through Philly because I wanted to see that really bad.
And they weren't. Head PE used to do that too with the angle grinder on the metal bar on the front of the stage. It's like, to me, Tim and I joke about this all the time. We eventually will deep dive on that. Crossbreed to me is the apotheosis of everything new metal, just distilled into one.
They should have. There's absolutely no reason Crossbreed of all the bands didn't break through. Underlined was a really catchy single. They had a few other songs on the album that could have been sent to radio and done what Seasons, Stem. They had the sound, they had the look.
Oh yeah.
They just dropped the ball.
No.
Didn't they have like the black light tattoos and shit?
Yep.
Yes.
The glow in the dark tattoos.
Yeah,
the jumpsuits.
When I
white
saw
dudes
them,
with dreads.
they dimmed the lights and they were all covered in glow stick paint. It looked terrifying and it was awesome.
Yeah.
All about it.
Yeah. See, it's funny because like when me and Jay started this podcast, I was like, I'm gonna go listen to this Crossbreed record, and I messaged him and I'm like, dude, this record's great. And he's like, you're fucking nuts.
Well, because to me, and granted, I view all this through the rose-colored lenses of my tastes were changing, right? My tastes were going in a different direction. But I remember that coming out, and I remember seeing the video on MTV2. And again, the jumpsuits, the glow-in-the-dark paint, the synth guy, the sparks, the white guys with dreads. I was like, okay, so this is everything that if you took every new metal stereotype and threw it in a blender and you distilled it and you came it out the bottom, this is exactly what you would get. And it's not that they weren't talented or serviceable. It's just for me, it was my brain was changing. I'm like, this is a step too far, right? This is like,
If you're going to take
it original or is it we're just grabbing all the things that we know we're going to stick?
If you're going to take every new metal trope, throw it into a blender, you're going to get one of two bands. You're either going to get Crossbreed or you're going to get Cold Chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So makes one wonder if you put Cold Chamber and Crossbreed in a blender, what would you get coming out the other side of it? It'd be really interesting.
Chamber music part 2.
There you go.
So I know it's getting late on the East Coast, but I wanna end on this band because Tim knows where I'm going with this. This is my one of my hot buttons with this show. Are they or aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Pitch Shifter.
They are a lot of things. And you know what? It depends on the album.
Absolutely. That's my point. Absolutely. When we had the new or not debate, and I think I lost this one because I said they're not new metal. If you look at if you look at Virus, you look at Desensitized, you look at Infotainment. This is straight up aggressive in the same vein as like a Godflesh, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, and even the first album, Industrial, Submit, the EP, stuff like that. Yeah, that's not anywhere near.
So they get to Infotainment, and it's pretty much industrial.
That was the start to that was basically Infotainment is the mid.
Yes,
and it's
because between Desensitized
record.
and WWW, you can see where Infotainment fits.
And then they start bringing in all the drum and bass stuff.
Brilliant album. I still listen to Infotainment more than I care to admit. But then they go to .com, which is straight up like new metal. There's drum and bass. There's the Amen Break is all over the place. They played fucking MTV Spring Break 99, right? Yep. And then you have Deviant, which is still in that same vein. And then it kind of just goes in the new direction.
I'm weird because my favorite Pitch Shifter album is the last one. Sigh is my favorite Pitch Shifter album.
Really?
Yeah. It was the first one I ever heard. It's not the first song I ever heard. The first song I ever heard was Genius. But for some reason I found Sigh at back when Hot Topic had CDs back in the early 2000s. They had a used CD section of things nobody wanted. And there was a copy of Sigh in there for $1. So I got it. And I really liked it. And but Infotainment is probably my second favorite, and then .com, and then it can bounce around wherever.
Yeah, I have to go back and say I was wrong. They're not a new metal band. I did listen to a lot of their stuff the last couple of weeks, and I was like, yeah, I'm wrong on this.
Yeah. Well, to me, they've released a shit ton of live albums since as of late.
Yeah, they've been putting out all this rare stuff too,
and it's really good. Like I picked up some of the stuff off of the Infotainment tour, off of the .com tour. Even there was one that was off the Deviant tour, and I'm like, this is pretty fucking good. Like I like it.
I used to have a DVD of theirs that was I think one of the show on there was a 2004 show at the Astoria, and it was one of their last shows before they like kind of called it quits for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And they were top tier. I loved it. I wish I'd seen Pitch Shifter, but they didn't tour the US when I was paying attention.
UK, right?
Yeah, they're a UK band.
They're same area as Apartment 26.
Okay.
Yep. I had tickets to see them open for the Deftones. It was them and Quicksand up in the Roseland.
That sounds like awesome.
Oh, I never made it. My clutch died on the turnpike at exit 7. We ended up pushing my car off the turnpike. Terrible. And me and two of my buddies, like we had to pop start my car to get it off the turnpike, and then the clutch was just gone. But yeah, I mean, I think I think www.com is an amazing album. I think fucking Infotainment is great, and it's a shame that Infotainment is not on any streaming anywhere. You got to find it via download.
Desensitized is missing too, isn't it? I think they finally
sworn I saw Desensitized.
They
somewhere.
finally put industrial and submit on things. I saw that. And then all
that's
the
because
demo
they just
stuff.
released the remasters, right? Like Pitch Shifter just released those remasters.
Yeah, okay. And then somebody told me he put out a biography, and I love music books, and I was super excited.
Where is it? I've got it up here somewhere. Shit, why can't I see it? My eyes aren't working right now. Oh, here it is. Chasing the Broken Line.
Yeah. By the time I was aware of it, I was like, By the time I was aware of it, I messaged him on Twitter. I'm like, how do you get the book? He's like, it was a short-term Kickstarter thing. I was like, oh,
yeah, oops.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a cool read because it was them on it was all the blogs that he did.
Yeah, it's a tour diary thing, right?
Yeah, and it was them with Gravity Kills and Junkie XL. Well, Cold and then Junkie XL. But it was, it was just it was point in time stuff, kind of cool.
When Superstar tour? Like 2000s?
No, this was
or was it 90s?
I think it was the 90s. 99.
Oh, so it would have been what's the Gravity Kills album? Perversion.
98. So this starts in June of 98, and the last tour day is August of 98. Coney Island High doesn't even exist anymore. What a shame.
Junkie XL is one of those bands I've heard the name of for like a decade. I have no idea what they sound like.
He does a lot of soundtrack stuff now. He did Mad Max Fury Road.
Okay.
A lot of those electronic guys, because they're multi-instrumentalists, typically end up doing soundtrack stuff. But if you're, oh my God, we could do an episode just on music books. I've got a whole pile. I got a whole shelf up here. That's why I keep looking. Good stuff.
When I started digging into, this will be just a brief side tangent, I promise. I started falling off nu metal briefly. And I had friends who were listening to like melodic death metal and stuff like that. So they were like Soilwork, In Flames, Arch Enemy, stuff like that. And I started dipping into that. And then I just went for it. And I started like getting into like death metal and black metal and doom. And like there's so many books about the genres. I just went like head first into it. Mm-hmm. I was in love. And then like, but the thing is, that's kind of the reason I don't like deathcore that much, is because when deathcore started like popping up as a big thing, I was like, but I'm already listening to death metal. I don't really want to listen to this. I guess it just seems like the hardcore version of something I already know.
Yep. Yeah. But I see what you're saying.
But yeah, like music books, absolutely love them. Those are sci-fi. Those are the books I read.
Can I don't want to end on Pitch Shifter. I want to talk about this band real quick.
Yep.
So I know me and Jay have talked about this many times, but I like to get the opinion of other people. So I don't really consider them nu metal at all. But if you go and you listen to Stabbing Westward, you kind of get that industrial new vibe on some of their stuff, though.
So you're asking the exact right person, because Stabbing Westward is one of my absolute favorite bands.
Okay. So what do you think of that?
So Ungod, Wither, Blister, Burn, and Peel, no nu metal elements.
Oh, yeah,
Darkest Days, though.
Yes.
Take little bits of Drugstore, Save Yourself, Haunting Me, The Thing I Hate, especially.
Does that have Torn Apart on it?
Yes, that one. When I'm Dead, what's the bass heavy one? On Your Way Down, stuff like that. Yeah, there's definitely a nu metal feel there, which makes me confused as to why Darkest Days was kind of a dip for them. Like, you would think that they were starting to, like, the sound was great on that album. Like, the sound on that album compared to Wither, Blister, Burn, Peel is so much cleaner and so much more electronic. And I, like, in retrospect, it looked like they were going in the right direction. I just don't know what happened. But yeah,
one of them bands that it's like, how did they not, like, after Save Yourself? Because when that song came out, that was fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it was on soundtracks, movies, like in between, like scenes.
They still occasionally use it in soundtracks.
Yeah,
I see it pop up every once in a while.
That's just a record where I could not believe they just didn't jump right off. I mean,
no, I
albums
don't
like
understand it either.
On God and shit, or it's like,
On God, I
but-
kind of get, but even for like at the time, it was 94, 95. I can't 100% remember. It was closer to an industrial metal sound, but they were always more commercial. They always had a cleaner sound, and they could write hooks, which
absolutely.
a lot of the other bands who were in that situation couldn't. But yeah, as for why Stabbing Westward kind of fell off after Darkest Days, they should have continued that trajectory. And had they made it to like 2000, 2001, you're telling me they wouldn't have fit in with the new metal bands? They would have been touring with those bands.
Absolutely. What's that one song on Darkest Days? Is it Killing Me or Haunting Me?
Haunting Me was one of the singles. It was on Faculty soundtrack, I think.
Fucking incredible song.
Yeah. But what happened? They released that fourth album that's like a pop rock album, which is right.
Yeah.
But it's not the band I wanted. I got to see them on their reunion tour.
Okay.
I drove 2 hours with my brother to Providence, Rhode Island to go see them. They didn't start their set until 12:30 at night.
Oh my God.
I didn't get out of the venue until 2 a.m. and I had to drive 2 hours back to Manchester, Connecticut. I got home at 4 o'clock and just out. But I didn't care. The whole night, I was like, got to keep your energy up. I know it's going to be like 1 o'clock. Just go. And
Jay was up eating his oatmeal by the time you.
Yeah, right. You're pulling into the driveway. I'm getting up, letting the fucking dogs out. No, I have never, for the life of me, the latest show I ever saw was, I think it was the Delaware Death Fest or the Delaware Death Metal and Hardcore Festival, whatever, where it was a Dying Fetus show that they lumped onto the date. And it was like Dying Fetus, Waking the Cadaver, Abiotic, Exhumed, Noisome, I forget, a whole bunch of other bands, and Dying Fetus didn't go on till like 1 o'clock. And I was like, all right, I got 30 minutes tops. Like I was pounding Red Bulls at the bar, just trying to stay awake. Cause I worked a full day. It was a Friday night. Yeah. And I heard From Womb to Waste, and I went, all right, I'm out. I'm going home because I couldn't do it. Who was it? Speaking of Nothing Records, throwback, Pop Elite itself, right before in the summer of 2019, right before the lockdowns and all everything, the world went fucking nuts. They played a show in Jersey at the Jersey Shore, or New York. They played a show in New York, but the doors opened at like 10. Ugh. And they were going to go on at like 1. And my brother texted me. He's like, are you down for this? I said, abso-fucking-lutely not. I said, you'd have to be like, I'd have to be mainlining ephedrine just to stay up that late. And then
I'm old. I want my shows earlier. Start them at like 6, end them at 9.
That's why I
love 5. Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
I don't care if it's hardcore shows in Philly. Doors are at 7, over by 10. I'm home with my shoes off, watching TV by 10:30. It's perfect.
I have a pretty crap metal hardcore festival story from the Palladium in Worcester.
Okay.
Went there with a few friends, and we went early. We're gonna do this all day. The headliners were Skinless, Behemoth, and Dimmu Borgir.
Oh yeah.
Walls of Jericho
for that. Sorry.
Walls of Jericho was there too. They were really good. So almost every band I saw all day, really good.
What was it? New England Metal and Hardcore Fest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still do it. They might. COVID's kind of thrown everything out of whack.
Yeah. They postponed it.
So Behemoth goes on, and I know like 2 Behemoth songs. Behemoth blows me away. And then their set ends, and I end up going to get to meet them because my friend who I'm with is Polish, and like he's just talking to him like normal Polish conversation. I have no idea what they're saying, but I met all the Polish guys. It's a 3-person band. They're all like 6'10", and I'm like, oh, okay. So we're finished with that, and so we're like, all right, we're gonna wait for Dimmu Borgir. Dimmu Borgir had nothing but stage problems. It took him an hour and 45 minutes to get on stage after Behemoth, and started at 11:45, and then proceeded to have sound issues throughout their entire set. The keyboards weren't working right. The vocals, like the mic was going in and out. I'm like, what happened? It was working fine for everybody else.
That's because they bring in their own shit, their own sound guy, and
Well, their
fuck
own
it
guy
all up.
sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is, especially on a festival, just play to the back line, play to the
Yeah, I know.
pre-existing back line.
Just bring your cymbals, for Christ's sake.
The one time I've seen a band pull it off and it worked was it was the last This Is Hardcore I went to. I think it was, what was that, 17, where it was Code Orange. It was the Martyr AD and Disembodied year. Code Orange brought their own stuff and all that, and they still got set up, played awesome, and got out, and it wasn't an issue. But yeah, a lot of times these guys, it's like, oh, did they really bring their own guy? Ugh.
Speaking of that, I had this written down. So if you get bands like Vane and Code Orange, I guess people are calling them like on the new metal radar nowadays, but they have the industrial synthy stuff behind it. Is this like a new wave of that sound, do you think?
I would love an industrial resurgence. Give it to me. I mean, I guess kinda, but not fully. Like, I want, like, don't tiptoe around it. Just dive into the deep end.
Go in, yeah.
Give me industrial metal again. I know it'll never be the same as it was. I don't care if Godflesh came back. I know they did, but like, it's never going to be that again. It's never going to be the early 90s with those really rough, angry, like machine sounding bands again.
And see, and that's exactly a great band for me to bring back to my earlier point, is a band like Godflesh. To me, that's industrial to me. That's industrial metal to me.
Yes.
Godflesh have a couple of songs that almost border on new metal.
Well, on Street Cleaner?
No.
Or no. What the hell?
Hymns.
Hymns. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that record, but I was listening to it and I was like, this feels like if Korn was like trying to be an industrial metal band. Like, I wouldn't call it new metal, like actually call it that.
That's when Justin was using, he went to 7, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was after their drum and bass experimentation. And that was one of the few albums they had with like an actual live drummer. So it had a different vibe to it. But I really liked Godflesh.
Yeah, he is talented, Justin Broderick. I mean, Napalm Death, Yezu, right? Like, he's got some talent.
I'm seeing Napalm Death next month. I am super excited.
Where?
Worcester Palladium. They're playing with Guar and I Hate God.
That tour.
Yeah, that tour.
Jesus.
Are you going to Shadows Fall?
No.
Oh, God.
I'm not the biggest Shadows Fall fan, and I've actually seen them live twice.
I want to go to that so bad nobody will go.
I am gonna see. Is it? I think it's Napalm Death they're playing. It's the second day of the Decibel Metal and Hardcore Festival. I think it's Napalm Death playing Harmony Corruption and Utopia Banished, and then it's Converge playing Jane Doe in its entirety. And then
that's really cool.
The night before, I got to find a way to finagle a fucking ticket because it's Dead Guy playing a reunion set. So I got to find a way to finagle a ticket for that Saturday.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I have. This is another side tangent. Very briefly, I'd been putting something off for like a decade because there's a festival in Maryland called the Maryland Death Fest.
Yeah, and
every year for the last 10 years, I was like, I want to go, but I don't have the money for that. Tickets are way too expensive, and so every year I put it off. This year I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm buying tickets. So I bought tickets and I'm going next year. I booked for a hotel, and then they started adding all the secondary bands. I'm going to go see Morbid Angel, Carcass, Dismember. There's like,
they put together great lineups.
There's like 100 bands. And I was like, I know 30 of these bands. I'm going to have to start doing some listening.
Yeah. They find the most obscure, crazy stuff. I mean, I wanted to go the one year that Wormed played, and I did it, and I've kicked myself because they've never toured the States. That album is fucking amazing. But all right, guys, we're getting late here. So I'm going to take us home. John, thanks so much for joining us. We look forward to speaking to you again in 2 weeks when you try to convince Tim and I that Supercharger is a great album.
Supercharger is a great album.
So on behalf of Tim,
Spoiler.
on behalf of Tim, myself, I want to thank John for coming. On behalf of John, Tim, and myself, I want to thank all of you for tuning in and once again, listening, watching. Find us on Instagram and Twitter at newbreed_podcast, newbreedpodcast@gmail.com for any complaints, questions, or concerns. We have a Facebook group. Again, it's pretty lively, and we're all over New Metal Reddit as well, so you can find us there. So once again, I want to thank all of you for tuning in, and until next time, this is New Breed Podcast saying cheers.
Later.
Bye.